I actually used to be a school social worker in the district. So I've got,
Oh,
and I-
in this district?
in this district in Collinsville, like we spoke about earlier. So I've got a little bit of the teaching background, I guess, so to
Sure.
speak. And I have 3 kids, 2 of which have went through the school district here, and 1 is a sophomore. So I've got a lot of, I don't know, gut, I guess, in the school district. And before I ran, I was the one that could always come up with all these solutions. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put my mouth where it needs to be and get on the board and do what I feel is right for the school district, because this is amazing. I mean, I moved here for the schools, for me to work here, and I stayed here to raise my kids. And I want to keep it how it needs to be, which is amazing. Number 1 school around, hands down.
Oh, that's,
So,
well, that's
and
great.
we've got great kids, we've got great teachers. Is it perfect? No, but is anything perfect?
No,
No. So
that's a great reason to run and a great reason to bring your skills with you of understanding how the school system works, understanding what guidance and counseling, how important they are.
communication,
Great.
being honest.
Yeah,
able to
great
disagree
addition.
respectfully, and yeah.
Thank you. And so this is, I know you're Jordan Rock.
That's right.
Are you Jordan?
Kyle Jordan.
Kyle, oh, you're not Rock Jordan.
That's right. I'm Jordan. I was elected in April,
Okay,
and I'm born and raised here in Mahomet, Illinois, live and work here. And I recognize that the school district is kind of the pulse of our community. And because we've had a healthy school district in the past, businesses and commerce has been able to thrive. And if we don't take care of our most precious asset, then everything else will follow suit in the other direction. So I just wanted to give back to the community in that way. A lot of the teachers that I had are still working in the district, so there's some strong emotional ties here, and I wanted to be part of the reason it remains so great
that's great. So you went through everything K through 12.
as well.
I think I
Wow.
was working at the high school when he was there.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't.
Yeah.
So that's really great. I appreciate that. What was your first name again?
Jeff.
Jeff, okay.
So yeah, lived in the Mahomet area for the last 20 years. 3 children in the district, amazing wife, 14-year-old, 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old. Our experience for the most part has been wonderful in the district. Part of the reason I ran my background, I'm a certified financial planner. Giving back to the community is important. So, I raised my displeasure about some things, and as I shared with you, my grandfather broke a heart in World War II, and you can complain all you want, but you also need the first one to step up to help fix things, and that's why I'm here.
Good, and you bring a level of expertise in the financial area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like that grandpa story. That's good.
I'm Sunny.
You are. Son.
I try to be a little tight, but I try. I am most proud of our teachers and our staff and the amount of energy they pour into our kids. Because there are a lot of areas around here where teachers can teach. I'm an educator. So knowing that there are plenty of other districts where people can go, but people choose to stay here and devote their time and energy into kids. And I always think about the fact that, like on my own kids' first day of school, I'm spending that day with somebody else's kids.
Mhm.
And I know that there are teachers for my kids that are doing the same thing. And so to me, it's just such a sacrificial job that I'm just proud to have a district with teachers like that.
That's great. How long have you been a board member?
I'm looking at
2.5.
2.5, 3 years?
Yeah.
3 years, okay.
3 years.
Going on, I'm actually in my 3rd year.
Yeah, you're working
Yeah,
on 3.
Yeah,
And are you teaching now?
yes, I'm an instructional coach in Unit 4.
Which is what?
Champagne.
Champagne.
Yep.
I have a grandson that goes to Champagne.
What's school?
Uh,
Oh,
I don't know the name of the school. He lives in Savoy and it's in town somewhere.
so it's not in this neighborhood?
No.
Okay. Well, then it's not Carrie Busey.
It's not what?
Carrie Busey.
No, I don't think so. If you told me, I could tell you.
Well, we can talk. Okay.
But he enjoys.
We've got great.
And my son is the director of enrollment at U of I. So we've got tie there.
Do they have the same Are they a Burgett? Last name's
Yeah,
Burgett?
Doug Brigette, he just took the job.
I'm gonna look up your grandson when I get to school.
Oliver,
Oh.
Oliver.
How old is
Brigette.
he?
He's 9 as of Sunday.
Well, he's not at my school, I know that, because I love that name.
Yeah, he's great. And Kenny, I know real well, and you are lucky. I ought to say it. You are, you're lucky. You had a good one. And Mr. Barstool Fixer?
Max McComb, I have been on the board of ed here, I think I'm entering year 17. And somewhere around one. We've just got an awesome community. Our district is full of people who just wants to do right by kids. And I'm here because I'm concerned about kids and our future of kids in our community. I've been doing this for a while now. And just appreciate the opportunity to do that. Help the district move forward.
Well, thanks for showing it as long as you have. That's really great. And Mr. Jordan?
Yeah,
Kyle?
Kyle Jordan, also a new board member. I ran because there was a little bit of dysfunction within our board before I proceed. And as Jeff said, you make these observations, complaints, but you gotta have good people in these seats to see these things through. And I thought I could make a difference and help the community out. I have 3 kids that are in the district currently. Junior higher and 2 5th graders. So just really
Twins?
Yeah, twin boys. Just really excited to help this community continue to grow and succeed. So
Great. I'm glad you're in.
Yeah.
Good reasons. Mr. Lamb?
Yep, I'm Justin Lamb. Came in when Sunny came in on the board, and this is our 3rd year. So the main reason I ran is because my family's roots are firmly planted in the Mahomet area. They go all the way back to when the electricity was. Yeah, I've got 3 kids in the district. My wife works in the district, and we just have so many friends that work in the district and live in the area. The thing I'm most proud of is our community involvement. We just have such a great community. Anytime something gets done, word gets out, numerous people step up to the plate and go to bat for our kids. That's the most important reason why we're here, is for the kids.
That's a great reason to be here. And this is kind of unusual. What happened?
We lost him.
Am I gone?
We good, Kyle?
Yes, presentation.
Yeah, I think that's what, correct?
What?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Let me plug it back in. Well, we'll get it going here, but I can get started with our. So, one of the things that I like to do when I give this presentation is go around and get a feel of how long you've been able to work together. And I have to admit, this may be the only board that I've ever approached that's 6 out of the 7 in the first term. Because you're still in your first term.
No, second term. Justin and I are on our second term. Oh, no, we're still on our first term.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's
we're on, sorry, Kenny, I'm trying to get myself out of here.
Six out of the 7 of you are still in your first term.
Real
And
like that.
you're on your third or
Yeah,
fourth term. Okay, great. Here we go.
I'm fussy.
Now let's see here. We can get it going.
Oh.
We can skip down. Okay, still plugged in. Yeah. So, hold on a second, folks. Technical interruption here.
Pretty good.
Okay, why is it not?
Yeah,
But-
it looks like he has football on that comes.
Yeah.
It looks like a legit baseball.
Bears
player.
jersey.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to start by thanking board members for the things that they do. And if you look on here, there's some things that you do. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to just stand over here.
Go get it for me, you just tell me when.
Well, here, I
you sure?
I mean,
You changed your mind last
okay. School board members and administrators do an awful lot of things. This is not, I don't know what happened to this, my program here, but. Let me get this off. Can I get this thing off here?
What thing are you referring to?
Podium.
Yeah, I wonder if.
I think you got one on the board there.
So maybe we, this is or you still need the charger.
Probably no.
So I think the cord's on that, you want it? Yeah, we should be good.
Advance again, idiot.
And so you don't have to, whoa, sorry,
Okay.
into the clicker won't be necessary, maybe.
Something. Find anyone. He can't even get a volunteer from anywhere in the district to come. And he says, what do I do? And I said, you go back to the root cause of why you might have to go a year or 2 years or something with one less board member, but you gotta get it so that people want to be part of the system. Obviously, they don't. So we talked about why you do it. And we talked about the reasons for being on the board. So we did get a lot accomplished while we were working on this. And so let me just get to this part right here. I want you to know why I do it. I want you to know why at the age of 114, I'm still driving around and talking to people. I do it for the same reason I hope you do it. I do it for kids. I do it for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids. Because I want them, wherever they move and relocate, to find a district to move to find a town like you did
Yeah.
that has a district that's inviting and encouraging and academically strong, athletically open, and that only happens when the top of the pyramid allows it to happen. And you are the top of the pyramid. And we're going to talk about that in extensiveness, the chain, because it's very, very important. So I'm here for the same reason you here. And that's a picture, that's a
Child abuse.
that's a child abuse. Child,
We're mandated reporters here.
let's see, well, let's see, let me take your picture. Anyway, Steve Jobs, I think, said it best. He said, we're here to put a dent in the universe. When he was talking to a large community of manufacturers and inventors, it wasn't just Apple people, he said that all of us are put on this universe to make a dent, to make a change, to do something. And when I heard that, I thought, that's a term for educators. That's a term for teachers, board members, everybody that works in the system. Because if there's anybody that can change the focus of our world, it's the school district. It comes from the Mohammeds. By the way, I spoke to your teachers about 25 years ago. I looked it up. I remember coming here too, because I remember going to Lakeland Woods when I was
Oh, yeah.
undergraduate at the University of Illinois.
Water slide.
I can't tell you what I did there, but that's in your district, isn't it? Really, really neat. But you make a change, and I don't know if you heard the news tonight, but there's a group of 16 young people, I think it's in Utah, that filed a suit against, I think it's Utah, filed a suit against the state because they were passing bills and not taking into consideration the impact it had on the environment for their future. And the bill was, you can't pass anything that is going to affect and not provide us with a healthy climate. And it passed, and it's going to be revolutionary. And it's young people that did it, and their young people are getting more involved and more into their futures, and it comes from schools like this one, schools that really have an impact. I always look at the report card of the school, and then I dig into some of the community comments about the school before I go. It's just kind of interesting to me, and I also like to know what I'm walking into, you know. And of course, Mohammed has got a great reputation. You didn't have to look it up to know that you do a great job academically, and your buildings are wonderful, and you're growing like crazy, and you're really fighting some fun issues. The issues are not enough room and good quality construction. You're really in a good place. It's kind of fun to come to a district like this. But a few years ago, Max McGee, the state superintendent at the time, and Brian Schwartz, who is the counsel for the Illinois Principals Association, and I were sitting down at a restaurant during the school board convention, and we were talking about board members getting on boards for the wrong reasons. There seemed to be a swell back a few years ago in the early 2000s of people getting on boards for political reasons. And it was almost becoming like a Democrat-Republican thing, which the school board should not be in any capacity. And people were also getting on there to fire the coach, to fire the superintendent, single issue people. They get on there, they find out that they probably aren't going to change it because they didn't understand it to begin with. And now they're stuck on the board and they really didn't want to be there, except for one other cause. And so we sat down and we talked about how can we share information that board members could peruse and maybe study and listen to that would make them better before they actually got on the board, or make them say, I don't want to get on the board if that's what's expected of me. If I have to be a team member, if I have no power to get on that board and fire a teacher, I don't want to get on that board. You know, if it has to be majority, I mean, that might not be for me, you see. So that was the purpose, and I was elected to be the author, but I went to experts who were board members for many years, who were superintendents of the highest respect level. I went to agencies across the state, across many states, asking different boards, Board of Education Associations, what they had and what I could steal from them. And we did just a whole lot of research to come up with it. And one of the questions that I asked everybody that I contacted, and there were several hundred, was what's the number one thing that board members stub their toes on? And what are the things that board members really, really need to understand to get a grasp of the position? And we kind of narrowed it down with this little board of people I had helping me put together the book. And the book kind of turned into really a lot of fun, but also a lot of valuable information kind of funneled into one source. And we talked about the name of the book, and to me, the name of the book had to be something that was meaningful. And we talked about school board knowledge and how to have the best school boarding, but we ended up with the fact that school boarding is an art. It's not a science. If it was a science, we could give you a checklist book, but it's an art. It's an art because you're dealing not with things, you're dealing with people. Your product is people, and who you're dealing with is people, and you're dealing with citizens and students and staff members, and it's all people. Yeah, I know you build buildings and you have computers and all that stuff, but the focus is people, and dealing with people is an art. So we wanted to emphasize that. Well, this presentation has morphed. I wrote the book in 2014. I went and asked the publisher if we needed to do an upgrade. He sent out surveys to people who bought the book, and they said, no, leave it like it is. It's a fundamental, foundational book. It doesn't need to be updated or changed because everything in it is foundational. But I feel that we need to talk about some things that are new, that have changed over the years, and I always put in a new challenges slide. And this slide is what you're facing right now. Maybe not in your district. Probably you're not facing staff shortages here. You are.
Well, SPED, particularly.
Special ed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Foreign language.
And foreign language.
Challenge.
All right.
And frankly, there's a shortage everywhere compared to what the numbers used to be.
But yours is workable.
Well, there's an application compared to what the numbers used to be. But they're right, staff, the actual physical staff, especially foreign language.
And,
Bus drivers.
but do you have that problem here? Bus, there's a lot of busing. Have you had to curtail or do anything since?
We're wondering what you were doing.
Are you licensed?
I was. Until I got to Highland, I had a CDL, because I was in a little district and you did everything. And bus driver would show up, like, you're in our district. Get the bus. Kenny, you have a license, don't you? Never mind. The second one is extremely important too, and that is you're trying to get principals, you're trying to get superintendents. And the pool has never been lower in number and shallower in quality.
Mhm.
Because, to be honest with you, people aren't jumping into the job of school superintendents like they were before,
Particularly in
particularly what?
Illinois.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I see it
Well,
through.
that's
Yeah, AAS, it says that the move from teacher to administration used to be the goal, the way you went. And now you get teachers to say, I'm part of that, you know? And I can make enough money in my 9 months that I don't need to work another 3. Anyway, it's something else you have to go through. I mentioned that board vacancies are high. And we are now seeing that resurge of politics threatening stability with organizations running candidates for political purposes rather than for educational purposes. And a lot of that really got stronger during COVID. And it was horrendous. It took a horrendous toll on districts, and it needs to be reversed. People need to run for the school board because of what you said, our most precious resources. And not for a political reason, and not for the fact that we need to work on the sexual or the all the things that get under the political deal. we have to do what's right for kids within our community and the community boundaries. So those are the challenges that I think are what we're also facing. And the one that I think is gonna be added and probably will be close to the top of the list is how we handle AI in the school district. I'm very encouraged by what some districts are doing in terms of coming up with strategies and policies with AI. I think AI is a huge opportunity in the right direction. I have a grandson who's a graphic designer, and I asked him just the other day, I said, are you afraid of your job being taken over by AI? He says, I'm afraid my job will become more specialized because of AI. AI will do the routine parts of graphic design and will force me to be more creative and more intuitive to the customer's needs that AI can't be. And I mean, it was a really, what he was saying, it's gonna make me better in my job. And if we have that and use it right, it can help, but it's going to be a struggle. So we talked about why it's the art, and we talked about the fact that it's because we work with people. And earlier I said you work with a lot of different people. These are the categories that my group came up with. They divided the people we work up with, and we were trying to go into a route of how we talk about dealing with these different people. And we found out that these two types above, cooperative and supportive, volunteers and philanthropists, in a district like this, where the community supports the schools and supports the teachers, and from what you guys said, that's pretty fundamental here. When you talk about that, those two or those four categories, you're probably talking 80 to 90% of the parents. And they're the parents that you don't hear from because they're gonna help, they're gonna do what you want, and you're blessed. But in a district like this, you have a tendency then to be steered by the other 15 or 10%. And you get pushed into solving problems that may or may not actually be problems with the majority. And that's one of the jobs of the board, is to be able to perceive what's going on and handle the reality. A couple slides on that too. And it's a huge art to be able to discuss an issue in the community and ask and understand if the issue is a perception or is it a reality. And once you got elected and you sit in these meetings, you start getting the reports and you start hearing the different parts, and you guys are just starting to do that. If you've been on the board for 3, 4, 5 years and you've gone through something 3 or 4 times, like tax levies and all those routine things, and you get a feel for it, you begin to understand that this is not an easy job, and what you have to know to do it well is just a lot of material. Would you agree? 17 years? And I would bet after 17 years, you would say there's certain things that you've done 17 times, but you don't feel like you really got a handle on it yet, because you don't do it enough. Yeah. And that's part of it. What are the other people you deal with? Well, the cave people, that's the real small little minority of, no matter what you do, they're not gonna like it. And no matter how you talk to them, they're not gonna like it. And if it was an election and you were trying to get something elected or passed, like a referendum, the referendum people would tell you, the cave people, you don't talk to, you just listen to and walk away, and you work on the people that have opinions, or for or against or independent, because they can be moved. Cave people can't. And again, they're very small. Then you have spoons. Spoons this is my term for them. They're people that just like to stir it up. They're not necessarily bad people. They might come in with a genuine concern. They think it's a concern. And to them, it may be. And until they hear all sides of it, they may still perceive it's a spoon, it's a problem, and walk away thinking they haven't done anything. But you know what? Sometimes you learn from the spoons when they stir it up. You find out what's going on. But they can be bent. They're good people just needing to be heard or helped. And the last one are the alligators. And these are the people that administrators don't like the most, because these are people who come in and when you least expect it, they bite you in the butt and they attack, and you don't know what's happening and why. You don't have any lead. And there's people in the district, and again, these people sometimes just need to be heard, talked to, and listened to. So the three categories below, the 10 or 15% in a district like this should not run the district, but they should be heard and they should be taken seriously, but not allowed to steer the ship, so to speak. Building relationships is an art. And when we asked the question, what was the number one stumbling block for board members, new or old? It was dealing with people. I should have taken that slide out. How do you handle a complaint? How do you handle a complaint with someone? And that's the number one concern. And that's the number one stumbling block for making a mistake or doing something that doesn't help but actually hurts the situation. So we had lots and lots of input on how do you teach or explain to a new board member their correct way of doing it, because there's a lot of different approaches. And it boiled down to a two-step process of how to handle complaints. Now, when I say a complaint, it may be somebody that comes to you and is concerned about the way the district runs its buses, concerned about the way the district selects their cheerleaders, cheerleading practice drives, concerned about a teacher that handled discipline with their kid in what they thought was an inappropriate way. Or maybe something really petty. Somebody comes to you and says, you know, their kid had to sit inside for miss a recess because of something, you know, just that kind of stuff. It can be big issues or small issues. But no matter what, to that person, they're important issues. You know, and I always had to remind myself as a school superintendent, when a parent asks to come and talk to me, their problem was usually far more important than whatever I was working on, even if I was working on something that was monumental. Because to them, it was their kids, and you had to take the time and you had to listen to them. Well, board members are in a very different situation. You have to, you're an elected official. You have an obligation to listen to the people who elected you. They might not have voted for it, but the people you represent, you have an obligation to listen to them. But you cannot solve their problems. And that's a frustrating part about being a board member. You have no authority to solve their problems. The reason you have no authority to solve their problems is the fundamental of being on a board. You only have one vote, and the only way you change anything is with a majority of votes. 4 of you at a minimum have got to want to change something. And if 4 of you say, yes, we're going to do this, regardless of what the other 3 said, you're going to do it. That's the way it works. So you can't say, well, let me go talk to that teacher for you, or let me call the principal for you, or let me talk to the maintenance guy about the fact that the field over at the grade school hasn't been mowed and it's this high. Let me make that call. You can't do that. You don't have, not only do you not have the authority, it's not in your chain of command. Your chain of command is very limited. You're at the top. You can't go up. Well, you can go up. And I encourage you to go up. Sometimes they go up, you have to get down to go up. But your chain of command is Kenny. No one else. So you have to get your direction and you have to give your input to the superintendent. You hired him to do that. That's his job. That's his legal responsibility. And Kenny then, underneath Kenny in the chain of command, is everyone. And he, a good superintendent, never goes and talks to a teacher without telling the principal or getting permission, so to speak, from the principal, that I need to go and talk to Mr. Rock about an issue. You can come with me if you like, or do you have a problem with it? No, Kenny, go ahead and do that. But thanks for letting me know, because wherever you work, if you work in a layered situation, you got a supervisor, and above the supervisor is a manager. You don't skip the supervisor and go to the manager. You don't do it too often, before you're gone. And it's essential that mindset has to be set for school board members. So how do you handle a complaint? We've come up with two ways. It's a two-step process. I like to use acronyms. So I created the acronyms for both of them. The first one is hearing it. I call it catching the complaint. The second one is throwing it, okay? Handling it. So you gotta hear it and then you gotta handle it. And the catching the complaint, the first step has the acronym of CALM. And I picked CALM because I want you to think of the word calm. It's an acronym, but it's also a term. I don't know if many of you are in a business that requires you to take conflict management classes, or you're familiar with conflict management. But when you deal with conflict management, the first thing you try to do is set up an attitude and atmosphere of calmness. Somebody comes after you complaining about why I'm not making any money. How come I'm not making any money? You got all my money. How come I'm not making any money? Blah, 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 blah. The first thing you got to do is get them calmed down. Get them so you can't have a discussion if one person's yelling. That's not a discussion. That's a shouting match. You got to get them calmed down to where you can talk about it. So if somebody comes to you with a complaint, whether it's a casual complaint or a emotional complaint, the first thing you think is conflict management, get them calmed down. How do you do that? Well, you try to impose the words calm. The first one is compliment them. This is the hardest, I think, to learn to do. Somebody sees you and you have a Walmart. Okay, well, do you have to go Champaign for Walmart?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they probably won't see you in Champaign. They see you somewhere, okay, and they know you're a board member.
Oh, they'll see us.
What?
They'll find us in Champaign.
Okay, they'll find you.
Oh, yeah.
They see you and they know you're a new board member, and they just grab a hold of you and say, hey, you've got to do something with that fifth grade teacher over at that grade school. Is this fifth grade over here?
Yeah.
Right here? Okay.
Well, that way, yeah.
Oh, over there. And because she's nuts, or that other kid's in that class, and this woman is nuts. And when you're on the board, you probably know, you probably had discussions, and I can give you example after example. She's getting angrier while you're just there getting a dinner. And she hits you. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna say, and you don't even know this woman. She knows you, you don't know this one, and you don't know her kid. So how can you come up with a compliment? That's really hard to do. Once you can get a word in edgewise, you could say something like this. I can tell that this is really a difficult topic for you, and I'm glad that you're trying to get an answer for it, get some help. That's good. That's a compliment. If you knew the kid and you liked the kid, the best compliment ever to a parent is to say something good about them. Always. What parent doesn't want to hear something good about the kid? And oh, I know your daughter, June. My daughter, she's wonderful. And oh my gosh, you'd have to be so proud of her. Well, she goes from angry to, I mean, you try to come up with something to diffuse. It's extremely important. Get them down to a point where you can do what? Communicate. That's what you said, the word, communicate. So you compliment, you defuse them. That's the first step. Then you ask them the chain question. This is extremely important because you don't ask them the question in a way that puts them down. You ask them the question in a way that builds them up. So you might say to this parent, what has Mrs. Johnson how she responded to you when you shared with her these concerns. Not did you talk to Mrs. Johnson, but the assumption that you went to Mrs. Johnson. That's kind of a positive, that's saying you signed the student handbook. So obviously you read it and you're doing it. We know the truth of that, you know. And so I'm not gonna go talk to her. Well, what happened when you shared this concern with her principal? I didn't go to the principal. Were you just stalking me out in the grocery store? You don't say that. So you just ask those questions, and when you realize that the answer is no, and if the answer isn't no, if the answer is, well, she wasn't very helpful, then you have something that you can build on later, okay? You just ask the chain question and get a feeling of whether they followed the chain or they didn't. Most of the time, vastly most of the time, they've not followed the chain. But you ask the chain question, and you don't say anything else about it. Then then you just zip it up and let them continue to vent. Maybe they're done. And when they're done, and you think they're done, you say, let me see if I can repeat your concern. And you do this as calm as you possibly can. You've had some bad experiences with your current daughter and her brothers, with Mrs. Johnson over at school, and you think Mrs. Johnson is not a capable teacher. Is that kind of what you told me?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Have I agreed with you in any way?
No,
No. Have I disagreed with you in any way? Then I've done it right. See, I can't agree and I can't disagree. I can't say to you, even though I know this to be fact, that my older son had her and she is crazy. I can't say
That'll get you anywhere.
that won't get me anywhere. And I can't say that. And I can't say to you, I know that the principal's doing an evaluation and we're thinking of putting her on remediation. I can't say that. That would be a good answer. It might solve it. But I can't say that because that's not privileged. That's not information she's privileged to. I can't say that. So I can only say what she said and kind of get to a point where we agree on the communication without agreeing. Because the minute you say anything to a community member that is against someone at the school or in agreement with what complaint they have, that person will broadcast that as loud as they possibly can. And they will tell everyone.
Even if they're right and you agree with
Pardon me?
them. Even if they're right and you agree with them.
Exactly. I went and talked to Mr. Jordan and he thinks she should be fired too. And so I'm going to the next board meeting and I'm going to raise my hand and say, I talked to that board member right there. And he wants a teacher. And am I wrong, Kenny? I mean, this happens. You get yourself in a big pile of doo-doo. And you need to avoid doing it. So that's listening. Listening is calm. Compliment, ask, listen, and mimic. Okay? Then the second part is responding. And I call it throwing the compliment back, throwing the complaint back. And I use the acronym PASS, like passing the complaint back to them. Because that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to take that complaint and you're going to give it to them to resolve, or you're going to give them directions to resolve with the little codicil that you will be able to help. So they're going to walk away going, I know that board member heard me because that board member offered some help. Wait till you hear what the help is and you'll get it. So the first thing you do after you've mimicked, after you think all the complaining has been done, is you point to the person that needs to be talked to. I really think that if you want to understand Mrs. Johnson's viewpoint, you really need to talk to her. But I understand your hesitancy about talking to her, which means you should go to her supervisor. In the chain of command, she's responsible for the principal. You should go and get a meeting set up with the principal. That's what you should do. Because the principal or the teacher number one, are gonna be able to explain the situation maybe a little differently than the report you got from your kids. You might get a different report from the teacher. And you might not, I don't know, but you need to talk to them. I have no idea what happened in the classroom. I can't even begin to comment on what you said, and nor would I comment, because I don't know both sides of it. And that's something that it really helps to kind of repeat to people. I don't know both sides, so I can't comment. What am I saying to her? You don't know both sides, so you need to find out both sides. So that's the point. Well, I'm not gonna go to the principal. You did, I'm not talking to the teacher, I'm not going to the principal. Okay? If you go to the principal or you go to the teacher and they don't satisfy you, then you need to go directly to the superintendent, and I can help that. I can help you with that. Even if you do go to the teacher and the principal and you feel like you weren't heard, you weren't listened to, call me up and I will contact the superintendent and let the superintendent intervene for you. He will contact you. Good, will you be there? No, that's not my responsibility. It's not my role. But I do know that if you can't get an answer that's clear and understandable from the person who's responsible or the next person, or you're unwilling to talk to them, you need to take it to the superintendent. That's the thing you can tell them to do. Call me and I'll give you I'll set it up for you. I'll call the superintendent and he'll get in touch with you. Doesn't hardly ever get there, but at least they think you will do something to get the complaint heard. Not necessarily solved, but heard. Point to the right person. And then, and you should know new people, you should have some discussion or some induction about the chain of command. Has that happened already? Okay, so you know what that is. But if you're not sure what the chain of command is, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not sure if that school has an assistant principal you go to first or a principal, but you can find out by just calling the office or something. Do your best to get them to the right person. The A in PASS is avoid solving the complaint. Overriding calm, it's the next most important word. Avoid. Calm, get the situation under control calmly, and then always avoid solving, agreeing, getting involved. Avoid that. You do not want to do that, okay? S, the two S's, share your role as a board member. I know you think I got elected to the board, you probably think that, I have a lot of input on what goes on in the buildings and everything. We are kind of like the umbrella, we're kind of like the governmental body, we aren't the management. We don't get involved in the day-to-day operation. We don't get involved with what a teacher does in the classroom. We don't get involved with discipline. Our job is to be a little bit more of a governance person rather than a disciplinarian. So that's not our job. But our job is to listen to our constituents and to see that you get help with concerns. And the way to get that help is to go to the right people who are paid to do that. That kind of says, I want to help you, but I can't, but I'm going to in this one way. And it gives you an excuse for not agreeing or disagreeing. And the last thing you do before you leave them is you summarize. I'm really glad that you bothered me here at Walmart. Screwed up my entire I'm really glad we had this happen chance to just come and talk. I'm glad you gave me this phone call because it does give me an opportunity to share with you the right way of solving problems in the district. And remember, if you go through the right channels and it doesn't work, give me a call. We'll get the superintendent involved. Does that make sense to you? I'm still talking to the parent. Does that make sense to you?
I'm like,
And most of the time, they'll say yes, because why? Handle it calmly, you've given them direction, you've listened to them, which is key, and you've pointed a possible solution, but if it doesn't work, an ultimate solution, get it to the superintendent. Now, does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
So there is one more part of it. After you do pass, point, avoid, share, and summarize, the one last step is you do notify the superintendent. You do share their complaint and concern, but you do it in a way that is appropriate to the concern. This is where you kind of do a little calculating in your head. You know, this is about a teacher that somebody thinks is insane. I mean, this is not your normal complaint. She's crazy. She shouldn't be here. That might involve a phone call to Kenny or at least a detailed text. And you tell Kenny, I met Mrs. So-and-so Saturday night, so-and-so, and she gave me this thing, but I was really concerned because she said with past children, she felt this teacher was just crazy. But I directed her to the teacher and to the principal. Don't always expect I mean, you might get a thank you for sharing, but don't expect a long detailed one. Now, if somebody calls you and says, my son is in 8th grade boys basketball, and I seen the coach at the end of the practice go into the shower when they're still kids showering, and I'm really concerned about that. And some of the boys have shared that with me. Bells are ringing. Forget everything I said. Okay, just say to the parent, thank you very much. Forget pass and shove and all that stuff. Thank you very much, and call Kenny. That's a problem. And that needs to be shared right away. Or my son came home and said some kindergartner told him that they're gonna bring a gun tomorrow. Bing, you call Kenny. You have enough common sense to figure that out. But most of the complaints you're gonna get are tax rates too high. They picked 3 kids that are not as good as my boy in basketball. I don't know what those kind of things. That's just a quick email, okay? But he needs to know every complaint that somebody gets you aside for. Why? Because maybe it's the 5th time somebody has told him about this teacher. Or maybe he calls the principal and just does a little bit of homework on the teacher. You let him do the work, unless it's something that's really an emergency. That's just kind of no brains. So you let the superintendent notify others if needed, and you always remember that your link in the chain of command is to the superintendent. You would never call the teacher and say, had a parent call, she's your good friend, you play cards with her on Saturday, and so you're just gonna let her know. No. Let me say that again. No, you don't call the teacher, you don't call the principal. You don't do that. You let him know. It's hard sometimes, especially in communities where you have social networks. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay. It's really important. That's number one. And by the way, all of them don't take this long. But that is the number one thing. Do it right and you'll build relationships. Do it right, and when that person leaves you, they'll say, you know that, Mr. Lamb, I'm glad I voted for him. He's a common sense guy. And by the way, I really appreciate you directing me to that coach, because I didn't have the courage to go to that coach. And thanks for that. You might get that. You might find, if you do it right, you might find people walk away from you with great respect. If you do it wrong, and you agree with them, it's gonna come back and it's gonna be an alligator. It's gonna bite you in the butt when you least expect it. Every time. Building relationships at every opportunity. Okay, so much quicker. What are the top 10 rules of school boarding? From this study, from this research that we did, we didn't come up with 10, we didn't want to just pick 10, but 10 kind of emerged as things that board members really need to have a grasp on, and they are in no particular order except the last one. And if you're old enough to remember David Letterman, this is 10 down to 1. Okay, so what is 10? You hire, none of these people hired you except, what's your first name again?
Max.
That's what you told me before.
Yeah, you guys are here.
You, oh, these three?
Yeah.
Okay, these three were here.
It's one of the first things I gotta do, I think.
Was it? One of the first things you did?
Well, close. We were here about a year.
About a year? Okay, well, it's a big job, isn't it?
Well, it's just part of things.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's maybe the most important thing you do as a board, because it's like you're the board at Apple, and the most important thing is to hire Tim Cook, because as he goes, so goes the company. As Kenny, actually called you down.
As those board members?
You absolutely don't, not even close. But you get the same pay as every other board member, even the ones in Chicago. I'm not sure about them, no.
I'm not sure they all are on the same.
No, they're not all. But you hire one person, and some board members have this conceived mindset that one of the jobs you're going to do when you get on the board is go through applications, and you're gonna have some input as to hiring the new principal for that grade school, or hiring the new coach, or you're gonna have great input in that. And the fact of the matter is, you don't. You have great input in hiring this guy, a man or a woman to serve as superintendent. And one of the jobs that you give them by law is to recommend employment of the personnel for the district. So when you hire the superintendent, you say to the superintendent, your job, one of your most important jobs, is to recommend people to be hired in the district. People that we will trust. You have gone through the right process, and you may actually have a board policy and a board process for vetting people, for interviewing people, whatever, and I'm sure you do. And Kenny, he's gonna be the one whose neck is on the line when you hire a bunch of incompetent teachers, and the community gets really, really upset. Now, every single superintendent is gonna hire somebody that there's no way in the world you would know that they're crazy, like Mrs. Johnson in the fifth grade, but she was hired by somebody before Penny. Or somebody that goes haywire and becomes perverted, and starts chasing after the girls or whatever. And you can't blame the superintendent with one case like that, but you can get kind of concerned if you have two or three, or you have somebody that's just not doing the right job. And that's where boards have go into executive session, talk about personnel, and have that conversation. But the biggest thing you do, the person, the lady, the man, that you go through the interview, you set the standards for the job. What is the job description? You hire a firm maybe to help you, and you have them vet all the applications, and they give you 6 at the end, and you sit down and you go through them and you talk to them and you interview them. It takes forever. And then you have that real hard decision. Is this the one that's best for the district? It's a hard, very important job. You hire one person. So do you really legally hire all the teachers and the bus drivers? Do you have a third party for bus drivers or?
No, they're.
Oh, sorry for you. So, you have to, you hire them all. You do legally hire them, but you hire a slate that's brought to you. Here's the teachers that we're going to be offering a contract to. There's 9 teachers. You can have a discussion about them too. If you know them, you can question them. But the recommendation is there, and you're going to approve the recommendation because that's what you directed the superintendent to do. Hire one person. The other thing about the superintendent, and I'm not going to go through this one, but when you go through a superintendent search, you have to remember that the superintendent, if they've got to that point, they are qualified. Did you use the Illinois Association of School Boards?
No, we used educational leadership.
Okay, they're very good.
ELS. What is it?
ELS.
Yeah, they're very good.
We used ISB previously.
Very good. The next thing you do is set goals for this. And for you brand new ones, they haven't sat through that yet. Okay, is that usually done in January or March?
We're just starting the strategic planning process.
Okay.
Superintendent goals, that's
Okay,
right
Well-
after the first of the year.
Yeah, when you set superintendent goals, it's really goals for the district that you want the superintendent to be responsible for. And a couple of things that board members need to be aware, and that is that not every superintendent can do everything. And I like to use the analogy of the iPad. The iPad was created 13 years ago, and the iPad is the foundation for the phone. And it's the foundation for apps. And the iPad, the Mac iPad was the first device that was app run and really has changed everything. And it can do about everything because you can put everything on an iPad. You can put an app to do anything you want. I've got a whole list that goes up and down. But the point is, it can do everything. Well, not necessarily everything. Watch this.
Emma. Huh? Emma. 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 Emma.
Okay, well, superintendents can't do everything either. Like an iPad can't do everything, but neither can a superintendent. So if you get a superintendent that was a business guy, he might not be, or she might not be strong in curriculum. Or if they were a curriculum guy, they might not be strong in business. So you've got to realize that a superintendent, if they're given responsibilities of changing things that they're not experts in, you have to provide realistic goals, and you have to provide resources to do it. So setting goals for the superintendent is extremely important, but providing the resources to accomplish those goals is your job, not the superintendent's. In some districts, I can say this to you guys because this is not happening here and will never happen here. But some districts use the superintendent goals as a way of getting the superintendent to fail. And if a superintendent fails because the goals are inappropriate, or he or she doesn't have the resources to do it, you've failed. And that's something you should keep in your mind. Number 8, allow leaders to lead. Again, I had a nice talk with Kenny, and I told Kenny one of the nicest things about coming here tonight was the fact that he told me how great his board is and how you guys have just, you're good, you're here for the right reason, you get along. And I thought, thank you, God. I knew this would happen one time. And he had no complaints about one of the things that makes a superintendent's job very difficult, and it's called micromanaging. And it's when a board member usurps their needs on the superintendent above and beyond the normal needs. Like you'll get a copy of this program. I'll send this whole program to Kenny, and he'll make it available to you. You can see this thing in detail, and especially some other slides that we won't talk about in detail. But a superintendent doesn't have all day to talk to people about problems that could be discussed or should be discussed, maybe on an email, or maybe at a meeting, or maybe in a different process. And I swear to God, strike me down with lightning if this is an exaggeration. A superintendent recently told me that he had a board member that needed to speak with him every day for a minimum of 30 minutes. Not the same time. He might go all day without hearing from the guy. And as he's walking to the car, the guy shows up, or the guy calls, or the guy doesn't, some guy doesn't. Yeah.
We could take it, but I'll take a term, we could take it for about half a day.
Oh, absolutely. But even 30 minutes every day, minimum of 30 minutes, unnecessary. And I said to him, you need to go to your board president.
These things directly.
You need to go to the board president when that happens. And the board president, one of the jobs of the board president, is to be a liaison between you and Kenny. So if you have a problem ever with Ken, you go to Sonny. And you say, I don't understand this, or I've heard this complaint or whatever, and Sonny becomes the liaison with Kenny, unless you're comfortable enough to go directly. But if you're not, you have a liaison. If you're micromanaging and you don't know you're micromanaging, and Sonny has had discussions with Kenny, and Kenny says, this board member doesn't understand, then she will contact you and talk to you about it. And if you ever have a question about, am I handling this right or wrong? I'm new, ask Kenny or ask Sonny, am I doing this the right way? That's how board members learn, okay? It's extremely important that you have a good communication set between each other. Micromanaging can become really a creeping problem, where maybe you run a landscaping business and you want to micromanaging, and you want to micromanage the yard guys, the field guys. And you come in and meaning well and have great suggestions or complaints or concerns, and you go to the guy, you do it all wrong. And somebody comes and talks to you and says, we need your expertise on the board, but we don't need it that way. You have financial expertise. I don't know what the rest of you have expertise with the counseling department, guidance department, but you need to go through the right process. Okay, tough one. Know the chain. We talked a lot about the chain, but you need to know the chain. And here's why you need to, this is the military chain, but the chain in a school is pretty simple. It's wherever the person works, it's their supervisor. If it's a janitor, it's the maintenance director or whatever. If it's a teacher, it's the principal, and principal, assistant superintendent, superintendent, whatever the chain is. But this next slide is extremely important for board members. It is really important. So look at it and think about it. You break the chain and you break the trust. The minute you go to a teacher, you have broken the trust with the principal and the superintendent and the rest of your board members. Now, if you did it and you didn't realize, you just knew you're a novice, and you come back and say, hey, Kenny, I really screwed up here. I went, and okay, good. That's okay. You'll get by, just don't do it again. And I was at a district where they had a board member who, when they were talking negotiations, would go directly to his next door neighbor, who was the president of the teachers union, and would tell her where the board was at. And they could never figure out how the teachers knew what the board was going to offer them. And the rest of the board turned on that guy it was vicious. And you know what? They worked it out. He was it's my friend, the neighbor, I'm trying to help. I was trying to break the chain, break the trust. Number 6 is to know the roles of everybody. I think this is fairly understandable, especially if you've gone through any IASB training. I think you have gone through some, have they?
Some of them.
Some of them, okay. They'll talk to you about this. These are the basic things the superintendent does, and this is by law. Serves as a chief executive officer, and here's how you spell chief executive officer, BOSS. The superintendent is the boss of the district. All decisions on a day-to-day basis are not made by the board. They are made by the superintendent. If the superintendent feels that the issue needs to be brought to the board, he will use that line in the chain of command and go up and say, this doesn't fall under my expertise area. I need direction from you, okay? And lots of times, a good superintendent will keep the board informed on issues that are right there at that level, So he is the boss, and that's the way Steve Jobs was at Apple. And that's the way people who are in that position should be looked at. The other thing that the school code says is that the superintendent by law recommends applicants for appointment to the school staff. It does not say that you have to vote yes on all of them. It doesn't say that. It says that the superintendent, his job is to recommend people. If you have faith in the superintendent, your job is to pass. If you have doubts or questions about a person that maybe the process didn't vet, certainly you have the obligation or the right to meet with the superintendent and talk about that. And I can tell you, I know of a district where that very thing happened when the board was ready to offer a contract to a lady for the job of superintendent. And someone in the community knew something about that, and she went to a board member and she said, I don't think you know about this. It was an illegal situation. And they had a special board meeting and they changed their plans. If she had not come to a board member and shared that. So communication, always. What else does the superintendent do? The superintendent is responsible for promoting strong staff development. And this is just so key today with technology and safety and all of those things. And these are requirements, again, by the law. Superintendent also does this one you both do simultaneously, interpreting the needs of the community, making recommendations to improve education. You're going to find that that's your responsibility too. You come to the board meetings with ideas from the community, reading the pulse of the community, understanding what the community wants. And that's something you work together, is how to make this district represent this community. Okay, you're used to excellence. You want excellence. Okay, the next thing, implement board decisions and policies. This is your favorite thing that the superintendent does. When you pass something, the superintendent is obligated to do it. When you pass a policy or a decision on an action, you're telling the superintendent, you have to do this. Now, we're going to talk about something called 7-0, and we're going to talk about it right now. 7-0 is when you have a vote, 7 yes and 0 no. Okay, so you take a vote and everybody votes yes. Penny understands that there's a new policy, a new rule, you've got to buy something, got to do something, and it's 7-0. Well, let's say that something comes before the board that you don't feel 100% comfortable in voting yes for. No board should be a rubber stamp board. No board should vote 7-0 on everything because it makes the superintendent look good or for any reason like that. Never have a 7-0 because you have to. Always have a 7-0 because it's the right thing to do. So the board president senses maybe with this issue some uneasiness about it. And before she brings it to a vote, do you ever do straw votes?
No.
Okay, she says, we're gonna just do a straw vote. So she's gonna go around, she's gonna say, how do you feel about it? Oh, I'm for that. What do you think about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a reason why you're yet.
I just think that we're missing something.
Okay, you don't have all
Out of all the bases.
Very good. Did we work on this together? And you're for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's to buy a new tractor. And you are,
I need more data.
you need more data, and you're for it.
Quickest vote that gets me out of here.
And you,
I don't know.
no, you're not.
I'm on the fence.
No, you're not. Tell me.
No, I'm not.
She's not for it. He doesn't have enough information. He's this one. Okay, now, that's a good thing that we didn't take a vote because it would be 4-3. Or it might be 5-2 because you might have just given in. You're new, you don't want to raise anything, so you might vote yes. But you didn't feel strong about it. So now the straw vote is really important because she says, why did you simply say yes? And you share with your experience why you think this is good. And then she says, why did you immediately say no? And you share from your experience being an educator, something that you see in this program that looks like it could be a negative. And you share that, okay? And this is really,
And then she and I both flip, and now I'm against it. She-
but you're listening.
Oh.
But you're listening to, okay? And now you say, I don't have all the information. What don't you have? Well, I don't know the financial, obligation that the district has in 5 years with this. We haven't talked about that. We haven't talked about X, Y, and Z, and you share that. And you'd say, I'm gonna put words in your mouth. I think my questions have been answered by this discussion, and I would be for it. And Sonny says, okay, it's 5-2 now. Not good enough. 5-2 is not good enough, because here's what happens when you have 5-2. You're telling your superintendent to go out and implement this new policy, knowing the 2 of your board members don't like it. Dead set against it, big questions about it. And you're asking him to go out, you're not asking him, you're telling him by law, it was approved by the majority, it's 5-2, majority wins, go out and do it. And Kenny is gonna say, I just feel terrible about this because I respect both these people. And so before you take the 5-2 vote, what do?
Well, I think you go back and you sift through it
Exactly right.
and figure out why we still have a disagreement by 2.
Exactly. And you might say, you might be the first one to say, I never thought of what she was talking about. I never thought about that aspect of it. And we really need to clear up what impact it might have that she brought up that none of the rest of us thought about. And yours is easy. You want a financial impact statement? We could work on the financial impact. And Kenny says, as superintendent, he says, these are really good questions and good concern. Sonny, could we table this till the next meeting? We don't have to pass it at this meeting. And let me get more information.
So there might just be some detail that one person thought about and everybody else didn't.
Right,
And you need
exactly.
to work that out.
Exactly. But you need to make everybody comfortable when you vote for it. Now, what are you gonna do when you do all this? You're gonna be happy, you're gonna be satisfied because they made some adjustments. You got the data that you did. You were already pleased. Now you're gonna have a what? 7-0 vote. The community might say, well, they rubber stamp everything. No, they don't. They work through everything. Here's a word that's very strange in government. Compromise. Serious.
Working through.
School boards, one of the things that they have that other agencies of government doesn't have is they have a fundamental focus, our most prized possessions, and they compromise to do the best for that fundamental focus. And they work through it. So when you tell Kenny to do this because we voted for it, make sure that you're making him comfortable doing it. I've never had a 4-3 vote. If I ever had a 4-3 vote as a superintendent and we couldn't resolve it, it would be my last night. There was always a better job anyway. Truthfully, if you have a board that can't resolve the problems, you can find a better board and a better job. And you just have to be careful about that. You really do. It doesn't mean you won't have 6-1s. It doesn't mean you might not have 5-2s. But if you have 5-2s, you're gonna have 5-2s, and the 2 against it are gonna say, I'm not gonna vote for it, but I'm not gonna work against it. You know, my personal convictions, I can't vote for it, but I understand why the rest of you are. That's okay. That's okay. Once in your life. But, I mean, that's okay. All right. Superintendent should also manage the fiscal and administrative operations of the school district. Absolutely responsible for the ethical behavior and the fiscal operations of the school district. What do? The first thing is the most important. You govern, you don't manage. You're the government, not the management of the district. So important for a board to function in the correct way. You continue to shape the understanding and purposes of the district with the community, the things that Kenny sees, the things that you see. And you massage it, you work at it, you talk about it, you bring in ideas that you're listening from the community. You communicate the goals and monitor the performance of the district. In other words, you look at the test scores, you look at all that stuff. You become not bored with it, but interested in it. And boards that take an interest in scores, take an interest in achievement and academic learning. They do. And it's very important. Good boards pay attention and monitor the performance of the district. You have a good district, so that's not too bad to do. What else you do? You select the superintendent. We talked about that. You oversee basic legal and ethical standards and responsibilities, just like he does. And you analyze your own performance, which is what you're doing right now. A good board goes through these kind of training systems. And maybe occasionally you'll do the ISB self-evaluation, which some boards love and some boards hate, you know. But if you have a good board, it's a good process, you know. Good boards analyze their own performance. Okay, so I like this slide because it's not always clear cut what responsibility falls with you and what falls with Kenny. And when you're not sure, the thing to do is to talk about it, because every job doesn't always fit neatly into a little box. So if you cross over the line, make a mistake, or you think Kenny's doing what you should be doing, you talk about it, you bring it up, you ask, you have a conversation. If you're uncomfortable doing it at a board meeting, you make an appointment and talk to Kenny, get some answers to it and talk about it, because it's an art and not a science. Number 5 is to be prepared. This is pretty simple. At meetings, when you get your packet, digital probably, okay, when you get your digital packet, you should look it over, read it and analyze it, study it if you can. And what you don't know, ask for clarification ahead of time. Pick up the phone, call Kenny and say, I don't know what this acronym means. Actually, I have 42 acronyms in your packet, but I don't know what they mean. And until you know what the acronym means, and in every board meeting, Sonny, you have a responsibility every time an acronym comes up of saying what it is. Because these new board members will not always ask, and if they don't get a PAF, a PEEF, a POOP, all these different acronyms, if they don't know what they stand for, then really it's going right over. And no industry in the world has more acronyms than education. So, absolute truth. It's an absolute truth. There's a book that's about half an inch thick. It's called Financial Guidelines for Illinois Public Schools. And in the back of the book, they have a listing of acronyms. The last year I was a superintendent, there were 452 acronyms in the book of financial guidelines for Illinois Public Schools, 452.
Not only does that confuse new board members, it can confuse existing board members who are not educators. And certainly in an era where we're live streaming.
You have to, I am chairman of a board of a hospital. And I serve on another board of 15 hospitals. And I'm a layperson. Catholic system, I'm not even Catholic. So I'm a non-Catholic, non-doctor, chairman of a board. And when I get an acronym brought up at a board meeting that they're talking about that has something to do with Catholicization or something, you know, I just say, stop. And now they know when I say stop, somebody explains what the acronym is. Because I'm the chairman. If I don't know what they're talking about, how can I possibly have any understanding of what they're trying to go to? So ask for clarification ahead of time. Text, call, whatever. If Kenny gets 4 of you asking for clarification on the same item, he's going to bring that item up in detail at the board meeting. So you're actually helping him. If you don't get something, ask for clarification ahead of time. Understand, I'm going to say this 3 times. 3 times it's printed. Understand, all information at a board meeting is not public. You do not need to go into closed session to have something said at a board meeting that should never, ever be repeated. Common sense will tell you that if somebody brings up something about a person, a teacher, a student, an administrator, a cook, a janitor, that is somewhat negative about that person with no facts, it should never be repeated, never. You can ruin a person's reputation, their livelihood, by repeating something that has no facts. Sonny might say, whoa, time out, that's executive session. Too bad, it's already been said. Kenny might say, we can't discuss that in open session, that's a personal, that's a student issue. Too bad, it's already been said. You cannot repeat all information from a regular board meeting. You have to use your common sense and logic of what can be repeated. Do you go home and tell your wife or your husband? Well, it depends on how much faith you have that your wife or husband will understand that it can't be repeated. I'm being serious. You know, they need to know too, that if it gets leaked out, it gets leaked out from your house and that reflects back on you. So you gotta be careful about information not being public. No surprises at board meetings. Board members, you have an agenda, you follow the agenda. If you have an item that you want to discuss and it's not on the agenda, legally, it should not be discussed. If you come to Kenny or you come to Sonny a day or two ahead of time and you say, I'd like this to be on the agenda, they might make an amendment, they will certainly discuss it. They might make an agenda amendment, send it out to you guys, and it will be on the agenda. But no surprises. And you can't at the end of the board meeting say, I'd like to know about the fight at the high school where the two kids had their teeth knocked out. Huh? And they might not even know about it. It might not have happened the day. What I'm trying to say is surprises are not welcome at board meetings because you're doing something that's unfair to the people who have to respond. Let them have an opportunity to be prepared, just like you are given every opportunity to be prepared by having that packet. No surprises from you, and there shouldn't be any surprises from the administration. Sometimes something will be brought up to be shared at a board meeting that may have happened that day, legislation, something as an informational item. That's different. No surprises at meetings, fundamental for good meetings. Don't be afraid to seek clarification, again, anytime, well, not 2 a.m, but ask for clarification ahead of time. Communicate respectfully to everyone. Sometimes you'll have board meetings where people aren't respectful to you. Always be respectful back. Calm, pass. That's at a board meeting as well. In the public, that's in a meeting, in the public, don't share what you don't know. Never talk about something that has never been discussed. Never talk about something that should not be made public because it was in executive session, such as you're looking at property to buy. You're looking at salary increases. You're looking at litigation. Those are executive session for a reason. They're not public yet. You know, when you make an offer and you have a price and it's in public, then you can talk about it. Don't share what you don't know. Don't make guesses on anything. Remember, all information is not public. Don't forget that. Remember, common pass, don't respect anyone anywhere and be a team player. My book for my board meetings is a minimum of 250 and usually 400 pages. And it's not digital, oddly enough. It's printed and you are expected to go through because at that board meeting, we have Zoom from Springfield, we have Zoom from Sheboygan, it's HSHS system. We have Zoom all over and we have to know what it is. If you get the board packet and anybody a farmer here? Okay. Anybody travel on their jobs? Okay. If you're traveling that week and you get the board packet and you are gone, when you get to the board meeting, there's nothing wrong with saying, I got the board packet on Wednesday, I've been traveling all week, I did not have an opportunity to read the board packet. That's fine, that's life. And it helps for them to know, because you might have a question, a legitimate question that comes up that you didn't have an opportunity to ask ahead of time. So always share that. when I was superintendent, somebody tried to fake it. It was horrible. I mean, seriously, share it, because life comes up. If you share it at every board meeting, that might be a little problem. Okay, and remember, there are always two sides to every issue, always two sides. That's the American side, this is the Canadian side. And it's your job to understand both of the sides of the issue. And that's what we were talking about before, perception and reality. Perception is what the staff and the community think, and reality is the truth. And a board member, your job is to understand what the perception is and then find the truth, or learn reality, learn the truth. And sometimes it's hard, but it's always helpful if you have those discussions. Okay. You're nodding and you're nodding because you understand that sometimes what we think is happening is not happening. And when we get to the reality and we learn what is happening, we can resolve it much better. Number 4 is be ethical. This is the part I'm going to make sure that you share with everybody, but you're going to see why we're not going to go through it. The code of conduct for school board members is extremely important. The code of conduct is, let's go over here. Let's see, we're right here. The Illinois State Board, the Illinois Association of School Boards has a code of conduct. It has 12 steps in it. The 12 steps basically say, this is how a board member should behave, okay? Now, I told you before, I worked with, or maybe I didn't, I've worked with 22 states on code of conducts. Doing this presentation in every state, I used their code of conduct. There is no code of conduct in those 22 states better than the Illinois one. It's succinct, it's valuable, it's important. And so what we did when we wrote the book, we took a great deal of time to go through each one of the 12, and then we wrote it, and then we defined it. We gave an actual definition for it. And what I suggest to boards after they've heard this presentation is to take a code of conduct and give it 5 minutes at the board meetings for the next year. There's 12 of them. Do you have a meeting a month? Yeah.
And a study session.
Yeah, and just read both of them. Take it 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And I have some boards that do it, they just do it all the time, perpetual. Why? Because at the end of the year, they will have gone through the Illinois Code of Conduct. The second year they will have gone through it, they begin to appreciate it and understand it. And some of the examples become very, very valid. So it is, see, there's a lot of slides that have to do with that. But the end of the Code of Conduct is this: understand the concept of confidentiality. Follow the rules of closed executive session. And remember, you are to be trusted. I want to debug something that really bothers me about executive session. There is no law, no statute that says it is illegal for you to share what's said in an executive session. It's not a law that says you can't share what's in an executive session. It is a moral responsibility, a moral responsibility. It's an ethical responsibility. So if you share what's said in executive session, you won't get arrested, but you will not be respected. And you may do a lot of damage. So you have to remember that closed executive sessions are closed because you are trusted to protect the information shared in those sessions. Understand? I think that's more important than a legal restriction. Okay, so like I said, you will have this presentation, you'll be able to look at all those copies. So don't worry, we're not going to go through them all. Number 3, we're almost done. Be a team member. A board has power. I can't begin to tell you what a board can do for a kid. A board can change opportunity, equity, understanding, all the things that you want your child to experience in life. If your kid comes into your house with something that is, you have a moral problem with it, you have a religious problem with it, but now it's actually part of your family, and that's your kid, that's the same thing you do in the school district. Every kid that's here is some parent's kid. And you gotta look at it that way. And the board has the power of making this a friendly, good, kind, loving, educationally adaptive place. Or not. The board has power. The board member has none. So you cannot come in as a one person and do anything. You've got to work up to that 7061. You've got to talk things through. You've got to maybe bend your own political, moral mindset to understand the entire group. And that is the most wonderful part of school boards, that they can do that and have done it over the years. There's no I in team, there's no I in board. But that does not mean you are not powerful or you are not important as an individual. Because that 7-0, you're one of the 7. And it's extremely important that you understand that. I coached basketball for many years and I absolutely loved it. And I love John Wooden and I love this quote. And I used to tell my boys, I coach junior high, of course, because I'm a shrimp. It takes 10 hands to score a basket. It takes 10 hands to score a basket. It takes, do you have an assistant superintendent? Okay, so how many attend your board meetings?
Our assistant superintendent, director of special education, and chief school business.
Okay, 3 and you, 4 and 7. It takes 11, 22 hands. 22 hands to change a policy, to make a discussion, to have something change. That's the cabinet and the board. And you got to remember that. And I think it's extremely important when you do it. Together, everybody achieves more. That's what team is. We talked about 7-0. It's extremely important that when you get to that place, and you will, where you have dissension, that you remember this discussion. You have to remember this discussion. Number 2, be honest, fair, and kind. 2 golden rules in school boarding is this: respect the other members. You don't have to love them, but you do have to respect them. And work towards reaching the objectives of the group. Good board is a team. A good board is a group. You work together and you try to do it well. I told you number 1 is the most important. This is number 1. Love kids. You see, if you're on the school board, and I get some argument about this, I get arguments about this frequently. Somebody will say, I don't care about kids, I care about tax rates. Or I care about safety. But I don't love kids, Well, we can argue about the semantics, but you'll never convince me that I'm wrong. Never convince me that I'm wrong. If you don't love your kids, if you don't love kids, if you didn't get into the profession of being an educator because you love kids, then there's something wrong. Because that's what this is. This is a kid, our most prized possessions. Right?
Sir.
Our kids, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids. That's what we're here for. Love kids. A good school board sets the standards for achieving the best they can from kids within the financial restrictions and the community desires. That's your job. Okay, so these are the kids that you need to love. And that little one in the bottom is my daughter when she was 6 years old. She's now 54. Her daughter turned 21 today. But look at how cute she is. Isn't she cute? Everybody say she's cute. She is adorable. Anyway, and how can you not love all of these kids doing their best to work hard? You need to walk away from every board meeting asking 2 questions. how did my action tonight help kids? How did our action tonight help kids? How did our decisions help kids? You need to ask yourself, when you leave the board, what did we do to help kids? What did we do? If we did nothing, if all we talked about was arguments and bus drivers and stuff like that, then we need to go back and we need to say, how did those decisions help kids? Or we need to bring something into the board meeting that reminds us about kids. How does my decision help kids? You dent the universe when you practice the art of school boarding. It's not easy, but it's always important. I hope the book helps. I hope your discussions help. I hope tonight helped. Questions? Okay,
I think this was awesome. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you. I tried to do it under 2 hours. We got started a little late, so we did pretty great.
Yeah, this was very helpful.
No question.
Go fast. Usually no questions. Everybody's too tired.
Have you ever read the Social Styles Handbook?
Yes.
Some of you, a lot of, when you were talking about the different types of people, that's where my mind went. So,
Yeah, and you know what? That's fairly universal, you know. But so much of what we talk about here really applies in other boards. You know, I could do the same thing with the hospital board. I really could, but it wouldn't have the passion. Hospital maybe because you have a passion for patients. You know, but if I did it, and I've done it for corporations, and the bottom line there is money, it's not the same as kids.
you know, I mean, Peter Drucker talks about, businesses don't exist to make a profit.
No, they don't.
And
So
now the product the profit is the byproduct, but they should not exist for a profit at all. And you can tell the companies that do and the companies that don't.
you're exactly right. And I think the thing that's most important when you think about the corporate viewpoint and the educational viewpoint, the thing that you have to remember the most is how different we are in how unique we are in the fact that you could bring a group of kindergartners in here and they demonstrate something that they learned, and every single one of you would just smile and you would just be so proud of the fact that you had something to do with those kids. You could bring graduating seniors in here and let them talk about what universities they're going to and what they're gonna hope. And what would you have? You would collectively have pride that you had input into that. And I think it's the only organization really that universally you take great pride in your achievements and great distress when something happens like an active shooter or a fire or something that destroys families. You get emotional about that too, because they're yours, they're your kids. You know. Kenny, any comments or anything?
No, I just appreciate your time coming in, spending a couple hours
All
with us.
right, thank you. If you ever have questions about anything, let me know.
Let's take a quick break.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Are you gonna have a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Thank God I'm leaving.
We're
Around here, we got.
we're a high achieving school district, we do high achieving stuff, man.
Okay. Okay, item 7, approval to place fiscal year 24 tentative budget on display. Kenny, do you want to?
Yes,
About that?
yes, so the tentative budget, is in your board packet. This summary is on the second page. These numbers will continue to be, adjusted, throughout the next month. These are preliminary, but as you know, we're in the beginning stages of our fiscal year. So, Heather will continue to monitor salaries and double check salaries and such, prior to us having our hearing on September 11th. And then we'll have the budget will be up for adoption in our meeting on September 18th. Just straight ahead, yeah. Nope, nope,
No, forward, no.
nope, nope. Straight ahead. Go
Thanks, Jody.
And then we'll have we will recommend final approval on September 18th. So as you continue to look through the full documents in there as well, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Ms. Smith. We do have pretty solid numbers on the EBF funding, which was increased. We did see a decrease in our Title I funding from the federal government, as well as our local property replacement tax. We have seen a decrease in as well. So good news and bad news amongst the different funding sources. But we'll continue to take a look at these numbers and they'll be adjusted and they'll be updated on the website as well.
So this is simply just to post
Display,
this.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. School code says it has to be displayed for 30 days prior to approval. So this is just.
So we'll have more time to.
Oh, yeah,
dive
yeah,
into this.
yeah, and then we'll have the hearing on September 11th, which gives us another week in between that and when it's up for approval.
Any questions? Okay, the superintendent recommends the approval to place the fiscal year 24 tentative budget on display. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you. Did you get those? All right, let's do a roll call. Bannister,
Yes.
Rock,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Severance,
Yeah.
Home,
Yes.
McMurray. Yes. Okay, next item is approval of personnel list, which is exciting to have more hires.
Yes, these are just, since our July 17th Board of Education meeting. This is a complete list, but the main things that we're looking for are some of the teachers that we've had to hire as a result of either resignations or that weren't fully filled yet, that were open and weren't filled yet at the July meeting. So you can see that we've got a media specialist at the high school and a Compass teacher, as well as a couple of Spanish teachers and also a science teacher with our advanced placement chemistry. So able to fill those and would like for those to be approved tonight as we start school on Wednesday.
Any questions on this? Superintendent recommends the approval of the personnel list as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, let's do a roll call vote. Severance,
Yes.
Bannister,
Yes.
Rock,
Yes.
McComb,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
McMurray. Yes. Okay, at this time tonight, we do have closed session needed for one, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. And 2, litigation when action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed session meeting. We need a motion, don't we?
Yes.
Right, just look at the roll call. Can I get a motion to go into closed session for those reasons?
So moved.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Let's do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Bannister,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
McMurray. Yes, okay, let's go ahead and we do not anticipate any public business or any business action, thank you, any action items after closed session. So we are going to turn off our live stream.